He said, because you were not in the way of it completing its mission. He said, okay. I said, what happens to the one that say is rumored to be here for many years? How could it take something that long to complete its mission? He told me, in some instances, if one is called up, if the person that was the target dies before the shapeshifter can actually kill it, it can't complete its mission, and it is stuck here on Earth wandering forever. So these legends of a werewolf being in an area for hundreds of years can very well be true.
So you think the werewolf you saw was probably called on somebody that probably died before it could do what it was supposed to do?
Yep.
You see, that's what was weird about at my grandma's. They had never had any trouble, and then all of a sudden, this thing just shows up.
Yep.
And it was underneath the porch, and, you know, my mom said it looked through the steps at her, and she said it looked just like, she said, a werewolf, except for, you know, it's real looking instead of the movies, you know. You can tell that it's real.
Sure.
And
there literally is nothing scarier.
That's what she said. And she said it spoke. My grandma, it would stand out on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And it would make the motion, you know, like the motion come here, you know, with his hand.
Right.
And it would say her name. It would stand out there and actually say her name.
At one of my members' houses. Now remember, I have Northeast Cryptid Investigation Service.
Uh-huh.
I have 5 members, just added a 6th today, who shall actually lead the Ohio chapter. But at one member's house in Indiana County, some of us were sitting around a bonfire while 2 others had taken a walk into the woods, just to take a walk and see what they may find. Well, they walked to the south from the bonfire, and calling, after they left about 10 minutes, calling from the east was a perfect rendition of the one guy's voice calling his wife. His wife almost went into the woods. And fortunately, another member stopped her and said, no, they're not there. That is not him.
That's great.
See, that makes so much... I mean, we've even heard the baby cry.
Yep.
Yeah.
And my grandma had a stroke, and she was laying in bed, and whenever she would need help, she had a little bell that she would ring, you know, and then we knew to go in there.
Right.
After a little bit of time, it got where it was ringing a bell at her window to get my mom and them to go to her room, and then they finally found out it was watching them through the windows when it would ring the bell, you know.
Sure, it was not a bell, it was ringing. These things can mimic almost any sound right down to a human voice. 2 of my members were out yesterday on a hunt, and they had literally 2 Bigfoot within 30 foot of them, and they were screaming back and forth, sounding like owls.
Wow.
And as they were leaving, they actually truthfully decided it was not safe because these things were sounding aggressive and they were getting in close. They sounded like they were about 10 foot away from them, just on the edge of the woods. Right. As they were leaving, they saw one that was about 10 foot tall.
Oh, wow. See, I've always wondered, and you may know more about this part than I do. Whenever I was younger, when this was all happening at my grandma's, me and my cousin, we shot one, and it was out in the hog pasture when we shot it.
Yeah.
And now this is back when I was like 16. I'm 45 now.
Okay.
And
so you're a kid yet?
I wish I was a kid. I feel old a lot of times. But it bled, and when we shot it fell. You know, it was like you actually shot an animal.
Yes.
So my question to you is: do you believe that the werewolves will die? That I get a lot of questions about that on my channel. Is do you believe it will die?
Okay. Number one, a Bigfoot will die. A Bigfoot, as much as anybody wants to argue, is flesh and blood. I know a man that killed a rock ape in Vietnam.
Huh?
He was a sniper. Good friend of mine, still alive today, and I've known him since the late 70s, and it took him till about 6 years ago to finally open up about it. Number two, I know 2 kids that killed a Dogman in Kentucky. And lo and behold, an hour and a half later, 5 black SUVs show up.
Okay.
Read them the riot act, told them they were going to put them in jail, that was a very rare bear that they killed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just literally threatened them with everything. And, you know, the kids shut up about it. Well, one kid I had known since he was 3 years old. He's 30 years old now. He was 17 at the time this happened. Okay. They didn't come out till, let me see, would have been 2015. And we actually paid for him to take a lie detector test. He passed with flying colors.
Oh, wow.
It was 100% a Dogman they killed. Took 11 shots out of 12-gauge shotguns with deer slugs.
See, I shot it whenever I was 16. I shot it with a 410, and my cousin, he shot it with a 22, and we was at point blank range. It fell, but it ran off after it fell.
Right.
But you could tell it was injured because it only ran up behind the chicken house, and it wouldn't go no further. But it was taking its fingernails, and it was scratching them down the tin of the chicken house, growling like really loud at us.
Yep.
You know.
Now, the werewolf, when it is in the werewolf form, or in, say, it chooses a man form, like the little old man we saw shapeshift.
Right.
When it is in that form, or when it is in the werewolf form, it is flesh and blood. It can be killed.
Okay, that was my thought also. Did you serve in Vietnam?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, I just missed that.
My uncle, he served in Vietnam, and he actually was living at the home place when this was all happening. And they, the question I had is, they had the werewolf there, we know for sure, the Bigfoot, but I think there may have been a little bit of paranormal there because they had a lot of things happen that just weren't explainable within our realm. Like, they had a guy out in the pasture that would go through the pasture that you could only see from like his waist up.
Yeah.
But it's like he was floating. And my uncle said he'd shot at it several times, and it was like, it didn't hit it. It just kept doing what it was doing.
Sure, he knew that he had it in his sights. He knew he would have hit it, but it had no effect on it.
Yes.
Yep.
And all of it happened at the same time. So I've wondered, does the spirits, do they follow the Bigfoot and the werewolves, or is it two different things, or? Well,
they're 2 different things, but yeah, they can be associated with it. And believe it or not, I don't know what you feel about the term gnome. Gnomes are 100% real. I actually somewhere here have a picture we took in Bardstown, Kentucky, of 2 Bigfoot kneeling down with their back to us, and a gnome standing facing us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We have encountered more types of cryptids I care to think about, more types than I could even explain. I have a picture of a Bigfoot mother that had just given birth and has the baby in her hands yet, that we took last February 6th. That was here in Pennsylvania. That day we also had a blue orb floating around us that was about 6 inches in diameter, and it literally came up within 4 foot of my face and just stayed there for, it seemed like forever. It was maybe 30, 45 seconds, like it was trying to figure out what I was. And we got a close-up picture of that also.
Yeah, in one of our videos, we almost felt that we were going to be attacked. We've had rocks thrown and stuff, but at this particular time, my mom was actually struck with a rock in the leg. And before all this happened, my son said he saw an orange orb go through the trees. And it wasn't maybe 30 minutes later, all this started happening.
Sure. Not uncommon.
So, we was wondering, what do you think the orbs are?
I really have no idea. I have no clue. And it's nothing good, because that blue orb appeared, and 15 minutes later we saw the female Bigfoot with the baby. I really don't know what to make out of them. I mean, we have seen and encountered so many things over the years of doing this that make you just scratch your head.
Right.
Say it can't be real, but you're standing there witnessing it. Hell, in some instances, like, I was actually attacked by one. Don't know exactly what it was, because I was sleeping, but suffered considerable damage. Still suffer effects of it.
I've had, when you're laying in bed and you can't move, but you're awake.
Yeah.
I've had that happen to me several times.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying. It was really scary. But
when I say I was attacked, let me tell you, and you'll just kind of say, wow.
Okay, yeah, I love it. I'm all ears.
Okay. We got to where we were going to camp. We were running late. So, the one member had his camper that just he was sleeping in. The other 2 team members that were there that night had their camper they were sleeping in. I was invited to sleep in either one. I chose, no, I'm going to sleep outside, be closer to this. I'll act as basically the sentinel. If anything comes around, hopefully I'll get you all woke up. So, because it was getting dark already, I didn't have time to pitch my tent. I've got a 2008 Jeep Liberty. I can fold the back seat down, and it's pretty much enough room for me to stretch out, but I've got to leave the tailgate open. Well, it was a chilly night. It got down to 48 degrees. So, about 1 o'clock in the morning, we all go to bed. I put down a sleeping bag to use as a mattress. Then I lay down and I put my second sleeping bag on top of me as a blanket. I did not unzip it, so I've got double layer, so I can be warm. I'm dead sound asleep. I still have my boots on. When we're out like that, I sleep with my boots on. I sleep fully dressed, ready for anything, I thought. Well, about 3 o'clock in the morning or so, something grabbed my right ankle. Around the boot, it's a logger style boot, so it is a very thick cuff on it and very high. Down there, you guys, I think, call them snake boots.
Yes.
Okay. I could feel it wrap completely around the ankle. In an instant, before I could even get my head uncovered, it snatched me up, slammed me down just by the right ankle like I was a rag doll.
Good grief.
When it was finished, I was laying on the ground. I was screaming. It woke up the other team members out of their campers. And I really thought that my leg was broke, thought it ripped my leg off. Well, the entire back of the leg from the ankle to my lower back was all black and blue. You could see finger marks in bruising where it had a hold of my ankle.
Oh, wow. So
like I said, I still suffer. My right leg never completely healed. There was nerve damage to it. But still, I do this stuff.
yeah, I mean, you're probably like me. You know, I grew up in it, and
Yep.
it was always at my grandma's, and it kind of becomes a part of life. And people ask
Right.
me, they're like, you know, how come you don't run when you hear it? Well, I've heard it for years, and it's kind of like you learn over time, like whenever it wants you gone, and whenever it's just letting you know, hey, I'm here.
Yep. Yep.
You
And
know?
let's face it, you're not going to outrun it.
Oh no, no. I've
The
seen it cover distances that were just crazy.
the only time I've ever outran one of these, and I outran a Dogman, Hank and I both, we were on our quads, and we have pretty big quads. And we literally just escaped an attack by one.
You know, my first encounter, and you may know better than me, I'm not real familiar, I'm just learning on the Werewolf and Dogmen, but I took my kid and actually my nephew, and I done a video on it, and we were walking by the lake, and we were probably, I don't know, 200 yards from my truck.
Right.
Well, we saw a pack of coyotes come out of the woods and into like a clearing, and it's really not uncommon down there to hear that. But what was weird is my little nephew, he's like, Mike, and he starts freaking out, and I'm like, they're not going to hurt us, buddy. They're way over there, you know, they're more afraid of us. And he's like, no, look. And whenever I look over there, they're no longer on all fours, they're bipedal, and they're walking the tree line watching us.
Yep.
And I'm like,
buddy, those weren't coyotes.
And I'm like, what in the world? So we start walking back toward the truck, and you can see on my video, we're walking back, and the kids are watching it, and I'm trying to keep them calm, and it's following us probably 200 yards away along the tree line, still bipedal, and it jumps up in a tree, and it starts shaking the tree so hard that it's breaking branches out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And the kids, you know, they're really scared, and luckily we were able, you know, to get to the truck and leave, but that was my first actual encounter with, I guess it would be a Dogman.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was a Dogman, but the easiest way to tell the difference, if you look at their back, at their shoulders, a Dogman has a hump kind of at the back of its neck, something like a grizzly bear has.
Okay, it walked like an old man bent over.
Yep. And a werewolf does not have that. A werewolf has a back more like a human.
Okay. So, yeah,
walks straighter.
So I'm sure, yes, these were dogmen. Because I told my sister, I was like, they walked bent over like they had a bad back.
Yep.
It was that weird walk.
Yep, those were dogmen.
I have one you'll probably know too. Last night we went out. We go out on a lot of investigations, and everybody say, you know, oh, why don't you put out, you know, 2 or 3 videos a day? And I tell them, every time we go out, you know,
work.
right, and we don't run into something all the time. Sometimes it's,
that's right.
You know, it's a lot of work for nothing. But last night we had an encounter with something. Mm-hmm. Me, my sister that's here with me now, and my daughter. We went to, okay, where I'm at right now, we're flooded. And our lake is 8 feet above stage. So it's flooded out into the trees everywhere.
Not good at all.
No. Well, we were looking up in these trees, and we're really deep down in the bottoms at this old pond. Mm-hmm. And we hear this, like, it's almost like a whistle, but it's like a screech at the same time.
Yep. Yep. So
we're looking for it, and we don't see it. Well, out of the corner of my eye, I see something climb up the tree, but it's only probably, I don't know, 3-4 foot tall, and it's almost the color of the tree. And I'm like, Sarah, it's right there. And I shine my light up there, and of course she starts looking, and she takes a picture of it. It looks like a bat's head on the body of a small, like, creature.
With wings.
Yeah, with wings.
And I'm not sure what the hell you call them. I encountered 2 of something like that was about 3.5 foot tall. Yeah. 2 years ago, it was literally, they were blocking the road, and when I say it's a road, it's one that's closed all winter. It's non-paved, it's a dirt road. They were blocking it, and as I got closer, they both flew right at the windshield of the truck, as if they were trying to get me to stop. Well, I'm not that type of person. I literally figured if they get me stopped, there's nothing but bad intentions, so I floored the gas. I figured, okay, I'm going to take them out. Maybe I'll be taken out too. And just at the last split second, they pulled up and pulled away. I went down the road I was on. It's basically a dead-end road. I went down to where I had to turn around and come right back by, and they were waiting again. And we played basically the same game with chicken. Now, 3 miles up that road near the mouth of it, there's the biggest coyote, wolf, whatever you want to call it, I've ever seen in my life, in the middle of the road, looking back like it was waiting for me. And it was probably about 300 pounds. Now, mind you, this road is 1 lane wide. You've got a ditch that's 8 foot deep on one side. On the other side, you go down a 30-foot embankment into a creek. So, I'm, 300-pound wolf, I'm not going to try to hit with the car.
Right.
So, I'm basically following this thing at 15 mile an hour, and it keeps looking back at me. And then it'll walk and look back and then walk. Well, we came to where I could finally get past it. It stepped off the road into the woods and just stood there staring at me as if it was inviting me to follow it in. Needless to say, I was by myself that night. I got the hell out of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you will have to forgive me if I slip up and swear at some point during this, because I do work in oil and gas. And
that's okay. I swear it a lot when we get out there, because sometimes it gets pretty eerie,
it gets intense.
Because the little thing that we found last night, the weird thing, and I never thought that it would have done this, is instead of flying away or running away, it dives down into the water.
That I've never seen, but it doesn't surprise me.
It went straight down into the flooded. There was a culvert there with a running water where it's flooded, and it went straight out of the tree, didn't it? Just right into the water.
Just dove.
No.
doesn't come grab you, drag you, X amount of distance, and then attack you.
That's right.
They do it where they attack, where the attack first happens.
Mm-hmm.
And when the dog does attack somebody, if it chooses to eat on them, it does it right there.
Yes.
It does not carry them away. We actually had a finding up here 2 years ago, not far from my house, and when I say not far, 40 miles, where they found a man's head. Police searched the area a couple days later, found the rest of the torso. The basically only injuries were to the left arm. They appeared to be defensive injuries to the left shoulder and to where the head was severed. They have never been able to determine what did that. Another scary thing is they've also never figured out who this guy was.
Right. Well, I worked on a case. It was one of my first cases when I started doing this. Not an actual first case, but I spoke to the family, and it was over a child that was killed. And a lot of what was released in the press was not what happened. For instance, the child was
very standard.
Yes, the child was decapitated.
Yep.
He had been partially consumed.
Yep.
And the location of the body was not where the incident happened. It was actually across the field on a pond embankment.
Yep.
But they were told by these people they had never seen, this is what happened, and this is what you'll say, and we'll give you money to take care of funeral expenses and money for you to move to a new place.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, and this child was, from what he told me in depth, and I didn't go in depth.
He did not speak very nicely of her, shall we say.
So do you think they ran into some werewolves at
No, those were dogmen.
Dogmen.
Yep, those were dogmen.
Because I know that she made him leave his his guns out in the barn.
Guns in the barn.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is crazy. Just.
Yep, and even after they left there, she would not let him bring them in the house, even with all they had been through.
That is so wild. People ask me, will this stuff follow you home?
Yep.
I can tell you this. At my grandma's house, nothing had ever happened until my uncle took his girlfriend on a spook hunt, ran into this thing. It jumped on their car. It ran off the car. And they went home that night, and that's when it started. And the next morning, their car was covered in fish scales. From that point on, all hell broke loose down there.
Interesting.
So I don't know if it followed them home, if it, could smell the smell and, came to their house, or...
Oh, I'm sure it followed them. It could smell them. It knew their smell. From what I know, from what we found out, okay, these things can smell better than a bear.
Wow.
Now, one of the shops that I'm responsible for is up in Alberta, Canada. I was up there a couple years ago, as I guess it's been 4 years now. We actually had a truck driver come in, white as a ghost, could not even speak of. Finally got him calmed down, asked him what the hell was going on. And he told us point blank he had just witnessed about 50 kilometers back up the road a Bigfoot chase a grizzly bear across the road.
Ooh.
and the grizzly was definitely running from it.
You know, people don't understand, you know, look at just how strong an ape is. And,
Yep.
Even the little ones.
yeah, and then you take that and you compare that to something that's, you know, 800 to over 1,000 pounds.
Not something I want to fight barehanded.
A 400-pound ape can deadlift 4,000 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, that's just... They could just grab you, pull your arm off, and beat you with it. I mean...
Sure.
It's just the strength and even the speed that they would have in, you know, in the woods.
Yep. And believe me, they are fast. Do you know why you don't catch these things on trail cameras?
I've heard they can see the infrared light that the cameras...
That is correct. The only color they cannot see, and me and Hank proved this out 4 years ago, the only color they cannot see is black light.
Black light.
The drawback to black light has a very limited range. And that's why I contacted every single trail cam manufacturer I could to try to get them to make me ones with black lights. Nobody would, because of the issues with the light. In order to be able to make one with a strong enough light to be triggered at even 50 foot, that trail camera would have to be a foot by a foot and a half by 8 inches thick.
Jeez.
Probably 24 batteries, I was told.
And then probably a phone call from some people telling them it'd be in their best interest not to make it.
I'm sure of that also.
Man, that's... So the talking, what do you think about the talking? Because I've heard them talk several times. Are they trying to lure you out, you think?
In some instances, I've got a Bigfoot recorded right now. I mean, I literally, and I had the recorder out today playing it for that new member. The recording was taken in Bardstown, Kentucky in 2018. And we spooked a 9-foot tall Bigfoot that was probably 550 pounds. It took off. We tried to follow it. We watched it run down to the bottom of this holler. And evidently at the bottom of the holler, it stopped and it let out 3 whoops. And I got those recorded.
Quite cute there, but
The whoops are always, and you know what those are when you hear them. We always know.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly right.
But we've heard it be a kitty cat, a little baby, a cow.
The
Sure.
youngest one.
Oh yeah, whenever we go fishing, we do a lot of night fishing, and whatever it is, it will throw sticks, like little bitty sticks, nothing big enough to hurt you,
Right.
at our kids. Like it always throws them at the kids up into the camp.
Well, I had one that I don't know whether it was a Dogman or a Bigfoot that threw a rock the size of a basketball at me.
Oh,
Oh
geez.
wow.
And it literally missed my head by 6-8 inches.
Wow.
Mm.
And then we've always wondered, is it playing with the kids because of it has an interest in the kids, like the Cherokee and the Choctaw and all said? Is it trying to does it want the kids? And
Well, if you are familiar enough with the Native American legends, they will play with the kids, but they will also eat them.
that's what I was thinking.
It's kind of like what he was doing with my youngest whenever he was fishing. Whenever he would cry or make those sounds, remember? It would mimic exactly what he was doing.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
it would do exactly what her little boy would do. And then another weird thing is I think that our family probably got really close to having a death. My little cousin at the time was probably around 6, and
Yeah.
she was playing outside by herself. She come running in the house screaming, having a fit, and luckily she was afraid. But she said that it stuck its hand out of the grass, out of the field, up into the yard, and was telling her to come here.
Yep.
I think it was an attempt to get her.
Yep, it was. That's just like anytime you see a gnome or hear of a gnome being in an area, that's exactly what they're trying to do. Is gnomes are very famous for stealing kids. There's a tremendous amount of cases that I can actually cite disappearances that pretty well had to be a gnome, including witnesses seeing the gnomes.
Oh, wow.
That in Bardstown, Kentucky, where I said we had that picture, the two Sasquatch kneeled down with the gnome between it. Under those people's house, they had 3 kids. They had like a 10-year-old boy, a 6-year-old daughter, and a 2-year-old daughter. Well, under the 2-year-old daughter's bedroom window, we literally found both Sasquatch prints and gnome tracks.
Wow. My sister saw tell him what you seen.
Was whenever we was fishing, there was a tree maybe 10 feet behind us. It wasn't a big tree. And I was sitting there with my youngest nephew, and he said, "Hey, there's a little girl over by that tree." And I turned around to look, and sure enough, she was standing, just barely peeking outside the tree. She had on a white dress, and it was like red glowing eyes. And by this point, he started to cry. And whenever I turned back around to get everybody else's attention to look, it was gone.
She was gone.
Yes.
Well, I can't say anything about the female gnomes. I don't know. I do know that all the male ones that we've encountered have, quote, been 3 to 3.5 foot tall.
Yeah.
Have been male. They've been bald-headed, and they've been naked.
And she had on like a, kind of reminded me like the old time dresses, but it was just white, and she was probably around 3 foot tall.
A very good possibility. My question is, what do these things take little kids for?
That's, like the 411, the clothes, were removed, and...
Yeah. Dave Politis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Very good investigator.
Do you think it's possible the clothes are removed because it thinks that the dogs can't smell them if it removes the clothes?
Yep.
That was one of my theories.
Very much so.
And they say that, the scent doesn't rise usually above 7 foot.
That is true, and a cadaver-smelling dog cannot penetrate more than about 11 foot.
So if this thing is part, let's just theorizing, saying that it's part canine, but it also has a high intelligence, it would understand the dogs that are tracking it and how to throw them off.
Exactly right.
Because it would know firsthand what them dogs are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I've wondered also where the bodies, are always brought back and they say, well, this area was searched over and over and over. One of my theories to that was if you bring the body back and you quote, give the humans closure, the humans are going to stop looking deeper and looking for me, and it kind of gets the humans out of their area because they know the humans are going to blame it on a pack of dogs, a tiger.
A known creature, a bear.
So they go and they do what they want to do with this child, whatever it is, and then they just return the child's body back to us, and search and rescue's gone.
Yep, that's exactly right. you pretty well hit it on the head exactly what's happening.
And our government, they know what's out there, but see, the government...
Sure they do.
But they can't admit to it, because if they admit to it, then they're admitting to guilt, and they can be held liable for all these occurrences, and they're not going to do that. They're not...
Well, that's not the only reason. Follow the money.
Yes.
How much does just Yellowstone Park account for yearly?
Oh, goodness.
A lot.
About $250 million into the local economy yearly.
Wow.
Just Yellowstone. Now, if the government admits this shit's out there, it's going to kill you.
Right.
Or can kill you. Do you have any idea what's going to happen to park attendants?
Oh, they would go bankrupt.
Well, that's the one thing. The other thing is, when the government admits it, you're going to have everybody that owns a firearm.
Yeah.
Going to be out there trying to kill one of these to make themselves famous and make some money. So they're going to be shooting at anything in the woods.
Yes.
I don't care if it's got on an orange jacket, an orange hat, and a hunting license in the back. They're going to think it's one of these creatures. They're going to shoot it. And you're going to literally have World War III break out in the woods amongst these people.
And another thing a lot of people don't realize is these parks, their rangers are federal. So local law enforcement do not have jurisdiction inside of these parks.
Correct.
So they're able to sweep it under the rug very easily in there, because it's in a controlled atmosphere with controlled investigators.
Sure.
You know,
did you know that you cannot get records out of either a state park or a federal park on missing people?
Yes, they even made the comment that they don't keep records on the missing.
Well, there's a famous park that I was just at today in Ohio called Salt Fork, home of the Ohio Grassman.
Uh-huh.
5 years ago, I actually started digging into trying to get these records. They kept telling me we have no records. And I'm like, dude, I know you have them. I want them. I'll file the Freedom of Information Act. You know, I know a senator, know a congressman. You know, we'll see what kind of pressure they can put on. Well, okay. At that time, I was told, well, okay, $2 a page, and you have to take all of them. I'm like, okay, what kind of money are we talking? Man told me point blank, I don't know. I'll get back to you in a couple days. I let 3 days go by. Hadn't heard anything back yet. So I start making calls. I get a hold of the guy again. He says, well, I'm sorry, I'm just not done yet. I'm like, well, how many pages could there be?
Mm-hmm.
He says, well, I told you have to take every page associated with it. I said, right. He said, I'm up to 77,000 now.
Oh, man.
Oh, goodness.
At $2 a page, I said, dude, I'm sorry that I even said anything. I cannot afford this. I said, I was expecting maybe 100 pages.
Right.
So then I started thinking, okay, if I can't get the information I need, the information I want from Salt Fork itself, maybe there's going to be something in the local papers. So I started digging through all the local papers going back to 1990. Now, all these little towns around it, none of them are very big, with the exception of Cambridge, is pretty good size, but the rest are small towns.
Right.
Since 1990, there have been 34 people that have disappeared surrounding that park area. Of those 34 people, 31 have been female between the age of 12 and 37. Those generally come up between the end of March and like Labor Day.
It almost sounds like they're feeding on them during like the birthing season, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly. Or they're taking them for its breeding season.
Right. Yep.
Now remember when we caught that picture of that female Sasquatch with that baby, and believe me, it was a newborn. That was February, the first week in February. So if we use logic that these things are like animals or something like human, the gestation period of a gorilla is about 7.5 months.
Jeez.
So if we count back 7.5 months from February, where does that put us?
Right.
Puts us May, June.
That's
So,
perfect.
Maybe, and I apologize for what I'm going to say, but maybe you've got a horny Bigfoot out there that's taking these females for other reasons them to eat.
Oh, absolutely. I believe that. Yeah. I do believe that. I'm about to run out of film, but one thing I do want to do, do you have a YouTube channel?
No, I do not.
Okay. Is there any way that people can contact you that you want to, I can air it for you to help you out?
Sure, they can call me on the phone. Northeast Cryptid Investigation Service has a Facebook page. My phone number is listed under it. Or you can just put my phone number up on it.
Okay, and it's Northeast Cryptid?
Northeast Cryptid Investigation Service.
Okay, and I will go on and I will get the link to your Facebook page and I'll post that in my description for you. That way people can go right to your page.
I appreciate that.
Yes, I've learned a lot from you. I'm going to go ahead and end it.